Peace of Mind Radio. I'm Brian Ramsey along with Eric Douglas and Isaac Gafana. We're back for another week. Actually, all this crew was here last. Well, it's not even last week. It was about 20 minutes ago, really. We shoot these two at a time, so we can kind of stay ahead of the game. But anyway, so as of last week, I said we were going to kind of change things up from the couple podcasts we'd done prior to that. By the way, if you want to catch any of them, just go to your wherever you download your favorite podcast and search for Peace of Mind Radio podcast. You'll find it. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll catch all the videos there, and you can go to our website. We have everything there as well. So there's multiple ways you can catch it. But last week we talked about just, what is it a good idea or when is it a good idea to refinance your house? And so what we wanted to do was very similar. This conversation came about because we had a client that came in a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, I'm thinking about leasing a car. What do you think about that? So we kind of walked through it. And I thought, I did an exercise about 6 months ago, and I wanted to kind of do a podcast on it. Now, this is not an exercise probably anybody that's listening to this has probably ever done, because you guys are numbers guys, and you even thought this was crazy that I did this. Yeah. But the question is, what does it actually cost you to own a car or to buy a car? That's kind of the question. And I'll tell you, this is why, this is how I kind of thought about it. I was looking to buy a Jeep. It's not my everyday. I have an everyday car, but it's, 8 years old. It's got 180,000 miles on it. And I thought, if I want to take the kids and, go visit somewhere, I want a car that's a little bit more reliable maybe and whatever. So I started looking for a car, and I thought, what is this thing actually really going to cost me?
Yeah.
Right? And it's that way with everything, whether you're buying a vacation home or whether you're buying a primary residence, or really, we were just chatting before we started the podcast. This question can be answered if you consider your house. What does a house actually cost you? It's not just your principal and interest payment, right? Isaac, you were saying it's what? All kinds of different things.
Yeah, the roof, the first 2 years of being a homeowner, garage door springs, sump pump, deck, right? Like it just keeps going. And they're all good things. You own it. Like that's fantastic.
Right.
But it's not free.
Right. It costs you a lot more.
There's all kinds of stuff that the landlord paid for before that you kind of start understanding maybe
right
why they expect rent on time.
Yeah, so when the guy comes and knocks on the door and says maintenance, that's not free. Yeah. It actually costs something.
Yeah.
So somebody was telling me the other day, they called a maintenance guy out, and the maintenance guy couldn't fix the problem. And they were like, well, we got billed anyway. I go, well, what did you think was going to happen? He's going to get paid for his time. You had a problem that he couldn't fix, but now it's a water line issue, so he's got to dig up the front of his yard, which he's very upset about because he always ignored those little things. Protect your water line in your front yard. He ignored them all, but the plumber couldn't fix it, so he's like, hey, ultimately could, but he couldn't fix it that day.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you got a water line issue. So anyway, what we're talking about today is what does a car actually cost you? So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of run through this, and if you really... I get it. No one's probably going to go through this exercise, but I think it's a kind of a cool exercise to know what it actually costs you. And as we're talking before the show, we got a lot of kind of funny little stories we're going to tell throughout this too. And I've got a couple that are pretty hilarious. But anyway, at least I find they're funny. All right. So simply put, I bought a 2018 Jeep Wrangler. It's a Rubicon edition, and I bought it back in January. So what I did was I sat down and said, okay, I found the Jeep I wanted, and I know how much I paid for it. And so my first thought was, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write down I'm going to address every expense associated with this thing and see what it actually cost me. So let's just walk through them, and we're going to kind of tell, kind of goofy stories or things we might have made mistakes on in buying cars and all that. So if you can think of a time, like I leased a car one time, total dumb move because I drove my car like 30-some thousand miles a year, and I'd get a lease for 12,000 miles a year because it was cheap until I turned it in. Then I paid like 10 grand in mileage overages. But anyway, all right, so we'll tell exercises like that throughout this. All right, so the Jeep was priced at $38,500. That's what I got it for, and I put $3,500 down. Okay, so I paid $3,500 up front, just as sort of to get my payment to where I really wanted it. Okay. Now, that $3,500 was part of my expense, right? I mean, it was an outlay of cash, it's cash flow. So when I went to tax, title, and license, the sales tax on it was $2,300, and that came right off it was $2,310 actually, but it came right off my sales form. Is 6% sales tax, pretty straightforward. Tags and license. I thought I paid a lot more, but I didn't. I only paid $577, but I thought I paid more than that, but for whatever reason, I didn't. So when I bought as I was sitting there, I paid sales tax, and license. That was my cost so far, right? Now, we were joking about this earlier. You go to see multiple people when you buy a car, right? Yeah. You go to the sales guy. Sales guy is going to what? Turn you over to the F&I guy, right? The finance and I always call him F&I, but it's finance and something.
I don't know. The guy in the back with an actual office.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, so we go back to the finance guy, and you sit down with the finance guy, and you think you got this little sweet deal put together, and then all of a sudden he does what?
Yeah, he's like, what have you thought, starts running, do you want this or that? It's like all these other options. You thought you've already gotten through every financial decision you've already had about just the price of the vehicle.
Right, because his incentive is to get you to buy more stuff for your car.
All the warranties and the extra details and all the other stuff, absolutely.
So as I was going through this thing, I bought a used car, a used Jeep, had 31,000 miles on it. And so I wanted personally, because I had done my research, I wanted an extended warranty. Before I ever went in there, I kind of knew what I wanted. And that just becomes because of my past experiences. When I bought used vehicles, I've always had issues with them where there's just stuff that breaks, and I just have that mentality that cars are no big deal to me. Like, I don't fancy myself with driving a brand new car or anything. When something goes wrong, I want to be able to drive it over there, drop it off, and say, fix it, and I want to leave. That's just how I am. So I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that.
Yeah.
Right?
So peace of mind.
There you go. Peace of mind for sure. So I specifically, before he ever got started, I knew this was in his little pitch program, and I said, here's what I want. I'm not going to have the car, more than 75,000 miles for sure. So I just, get me a warranty that gets me up to 75,000 miles. And of course, he's like, oh, it's already in his little pitch book, so so I knew what it was going to cost me.
Okay. The sheet's already laminated.
That's exactly right. So that extended warranty cost me $1,500. Cost me about $1,500 total. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then he went through this program, which I fell victim to it. It sounded great, but I'll tell you why I fell victim to it. And not that I'm a victim to it, but I fell into his little pitch.
You're a victim.
But yeah.
Don't forget about me. Don't forget about Brian.
That's right. So they had this program where if there's ever a ding in the side of your car, where somebody opens up and dings your car, or if your kids spill crap in the floor and take their feet, and I'm not saying that this has happened to me, but when they take a cinnamon roll that has icing on it and it falls into the floor mat, and then you take your shoe and try to crust it up and rub it around, and it's still not dried yet, so it gets all in the car. I'm just saying.
Hypothetical situation.
Hypothetical.
Let's say it was on a Tuesday.
That's right.
17 months ago.
Yeah. So they had this program where for $200 a year or $250 a year, you could have this protection program where if you got a ding in the side of your car or was a scratch, or there was a whole laundry list of things. Part of it was, if your leather got ripped or your carpet was, you had a cinnamon roll that fell into it and, and ruined your carpet. They would fix all that. It was $250 a year. So that part, I did sort of fall victim to it and go, yes, I'll take it. But it sounded good. And it only sounded good because of my previous experiences with my kids are not the cleanest in the world. I got a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, but they constantly drop crap in the floor and step all over it. And I've had people, we got very small parking spots out here in our parking lot, and I have had dings in the side of my car, right? And it's $100 every time you want to go get them fixed. And so I thought, well, okay, in this case, I don't have to worry about it, right? I just pull in over there and they go fix it.
Yeah, you never really know how that's going to turn out, right? Like I've had 2 transactions where my wife and I have bought these things over time. One was not a car, it was a kitchen table. And I remember they were trying to, and I almost never buy these things.
Yep.
And they're like, you guys are going to have kids? I'm like, yeah. And we just bought the house. And they're like, what if they like stab a knife into the table or something like that? And I was like, who does that? And we haven't had kids. Now I got 3 kids, 6 and under. And I have implemented that warranty on either the bench seats, the stools, the actual table has been replaced because they do things like that.
They go Michael Myers on it?
Yeah. I mean, like seriously, like they just find things that you could not imagine.
Yeah.
Like our youngest is a little over 1. She literally was like bit a chunk out of the leather on the seat. Like she thought this is a good place to teeth. And I was like, I didn't, the other 2 somehow weren't that innovative or whatever. But we did, when we bought our minivan, we got something like this.
Yep.
And it was like, the same thing you're talking about. It's all about peace of mind there. We didn't buy the leather because they had this certain package where you got like all the movie stuff and all the audio things that were really important when you travel with the kids and all that. But then I was worried about the cloth. And of course they had the answer, which was we have a protection program.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about your cloth seats. And I was like, cool. Thing that was really cool though, 3 months after we bought the van, dealership sold. And I won't name the dealership in town. And, but they were no longer the same ownership. We had the same plan, oil changes, all that stuff. None of it. And every time we go back in there, and they still kind of honor it, but it's like very onerous. And every time we have to explain the same thing. So, it's like anything in life, you make a decision.
Yep.
You run some calculation. What's the peace of mind to the cost? And then you live with it, right?
Yep.
So don't feel too hard on yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think you're too much of a victim. I think you'll be all right.
No, but but I may ding my door on purpose. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do that.
11 months in, you're like, I haven't used this at all
That's
this
right.
year.
I know. Okay, so the next thing, this is one that we will eventually do a podcast on because we did a radio show about leasing versus buying your car and having and putting taking a loan out on it. That is one we'll do. There's lots of debate around leasing versus buying, and so we'll do a show on that. But I actually did take a note out on this thing, and I'm going to tell you why. So I could have paid cash for it, but I chose not to. And this goes back to, if you go listen to our show we did last week, Eric mentioned this, and I think Isaac, you did too. It comes down to opportunity costs, right? Where could I take $35,000? Where is that more effective use for me? And this is a question we all should be asking. It doesn't matter if you're buying a car or second house or whatever it is. You've got to look at your money and say, what is the most effective use for those dollars? To me, I got a pretty low interest rate on my car. I did. I don't know what it was, 3 something. I forgot what it was. 4.5%. Sorry. So 4.5%. But I felt like I could do other things with my money and get more than 4.5% interest on it, right? That's just a choice that I made. That's not the case for everybody, but I think you have to sit down when you're making decisions like that and say, what is the most effective use for my money? And in my case, I chose to do something else with it. So I got a loan for $35,000. It's a 48-month loan. It's 4.5%, and the payment's $652 a month. So my loan payments over the course of a year, $7,800. Okay. So as I'm going through this process, I want to know what it cost me year one, because year one costs are different than year 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the same way when you buy a house. Mm-hmm. You have more expenses up front, and then you sort of get into a groove moving forward. So far we've got that I paid for the vehicle. I was a sucker and did some other kind of add-ons, and then I paid my mortgage, or my loan on that is $7,800. Okay. All right. So the other thing, this is not something that we normally have to worry about, especially when it comes to real estate or other investments. But when it comes to a vehicle, it is a depreciating asset. Unless I've got a really old car. I've got an old 68 Mustang, and that car actually appreciates in value, right? So the older it gets, I guess it's valuable, and then it gets to be a piece of crap. Nobody wants it, and then as long as you save it, then later on down the road, it'll be expensive again, which is what my old car does. But when I know that this is 2018, I know that every year on average, I'm going to lose about 10% value on a car. Unless you drive it off the lot. I did some research on that, and it says that a new car driven off the lot is about 20% value is the day you drive it off the lot. But on average, a car will depreciate by about 10%. Now, that is a number that most people look at and go, I know it goes down in value. Yeah, but that's an asset you're losing money on. On average, what does that cost you? So in year one, if I had a car worth $38,000 and I depreciated 10% over that first year, that car's technically costing me $3,800, right? Pretty simple. Okay. Insurance, very straightforward. I just called my insurance broker and said, hey, what's it cost me, to insure it? $741 a year. Although it would be more if this were your primary vehicle, but it's not my primary vehicle, or at least we said that on for insurance purposes. And if my insurance guy's watching this, sorry, it's not my primary vehicle. But it's a second vehicle, so it's not as expensive if you just have one. And by the way, what is your all's thoughts on, and we'll say homeowners insurance, auto insurance, what is your all's recommendation client-wise about how often you should review to make sure your insurance is adequate and that sort of thing?
At a minimum, every 3 years.
Okay.
You should never go more than 3 years without getting a new quote. Doesn't mean you have to move, but you should at least price it out. Probably even, it wouldn't hurt to do it every 1 or 2 years, but at least every 3.
Yeah. Isaac, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think it's important to have, if you have a good independent agent, so if you get the right person that has, 80 companies that they typically, most of the insurance agents in town that are in part of independent agencies have a lot of companies, and it behooves them at your renewal to shop your rate for you. So part of it you can solve just by having the right person that works on your behalf and reviews things on an annual basis. If you're just working with someone, I won't name any particular company, but that's all it is, and that's the only option, you're going to have to be the one shopping it every 3 years, kind of like what Eric says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like looking at your property and casualty insurance is really no different than looking at beneficiaries on any of your retirement accounts, right? I do it annually. And I do. I sometimes he'll call me, but sometimes I just have a note on my calendar. I'll call him and go, hey, what do things look like? So he's pretty good about kind of being a partner with me. And like you said, I feel like he's in my camp, and if I miss it, he'll pick up the phone and call and go, hey, let's take a look at your insurance. 1 year, he's like, hey, just stay where you are. And then last year he said, hey, we need to move. So we did. So that's a great point. If your insurance guy hasn't reached out to you in, let's say, in the last 2 or 3 years, I would either A, find somebody different, or B, try to find somebody that can be more of a partner with you, or B, go out and shop it yourself.
Yeah, I know something unique to some people, like my wife works at Humana, and they have discount programs as Humana employees. So we got in the habit that we just kind of did it every open enrollment.
Yeah.
When we were making a benefits decision as a family, we'd look at stuff like that, because sometimes that did make an impact on our property and casualty. But since we've had an independent agent, we haven't really gone back to anything through the employee group. Yeah.
So let me ask you, when you do, you get a new client that comes in and you're doing a financial plan for them, and they say, and you do a property and casualty review, I'm assuming you guys have independent agents. You could send their particular information off and have an independent agent review it, doesn't matter who they're working with, right? Doesn't mean they have to move. It just means you have access to an independent agent to say, hey, let's just take a look at it to make sure it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it never hurts just to get a quote.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't mean you have change, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a big one. This is one everybody deals with, and that's fuel. What's it cost you to drive your car per year? So again, being the kind of numbers nerd that I am, I wanted to know. And so I just did an app. Now, I will tell you, when I did an average price of fuel right now, it was like $1.81. That's totally not the case. It's only because fuel or oil is under pressure right now. But on average, I just used $2.50 per gallon. I think it's maybe a little higher than that in normal circumstance, but I picked that number. So again, I did this weird math, right? So it's I drive about 24,000 miles a year, sometimes a little bit longer than that. But anyway, my truck gets about 18 miles a gallon. Yes, I
Atta
know.
boy.
I'm going to get people to call in and go, hey, there's Tesla and all that other stuff. I get that, but anyway.
Is that unleaded or premium or plus or what kind of fuel?
Yeah, that's your cheap regular. All right, I'm sorry, unleaded. Okay, so I basically divided 18 miles to the gallon by the 24,000 miles, came up with 1,333 gallons per year. So it's really costing me about $5,300 a year in fuel.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so let's move on. So there's your gas. And again, there's people that drive a whole heck of a lot more than that.
My first year of marriage, that was when gas was $5 a gallon.
Yeah.
And I had a Mustang GT that I had put gears in and like
Oh, yeah.
stage 3 clutch, and it was really fun and all that kind of stuff. And gas got really expensive, and I happened to be driving a lot. In college, I just tooled around campus. Like
Right.
I didn't put on any miles
Right.
to and from practice in high school and that. Well, I found myself driving more in the 24,000, 30,000 a year, and that became very unacceptable.
Yeah, I can
And
see.
so I remember that was when the version 2 of the Prius came out. So I traded in my Mustang for a Toyota Prius that got, close to 50 miles per gallon. You want to talk about the numbers on cost of ownership, big deal. Now, it didn't feel great going from my really nice Mustang to this white with tan cloth seat Toyota Prius. Like, it was, I'm not going to be cool or anything, but that was a money decision.
Yeah.
And that happened to be the only Prius
Hey,
in the
you're-
state of Kentucky left because of the gas prices.
You were married then, you had to become more sensible, right?
Yeah, very. I mean, even the car dealer was pretty upset for me. Like, he seemed very compassionate about the matter. I think he enjoyed the test drive just to make sure it was functional, though.
Right.
But at any rate,
So before you say anything about gas mileage, even though that truck gets about 18, it averages 18, so it gets a little bit more on the road or whatever. But I've got an old 68 Mustang, as I mentioned, and we calculate that in the number of gallons per mile as opposed to miles per gallon. Because when you hit that thing, it's like just dumps gallons. I mean, just gallons of fuel out. I mean, you can go through a tank of gas in a Sunday afternoon ride and that thing, but neither here nor there. Okay. All right. So moving on, oil change. I do. So oil changes are odd because you can go in and get, the basic oil change that they say do it every 3,000 miles. Now they have, synthetic or partial, or was it half synthetic or something that you can do every 5,000. And then they got the full synthetic that's like you can go every 10,000 miles. So I do pay extra. It's more of a time thing to get the full synthetic so that I don't have to go in there, but every 10,000 miles. It's more of just a convenience thing for me, but it costs me about $90 every time I go have it done. It's about every 10,000 miles. So really I'm getting an oil change of about 2 a year, or give or take. So I just calculated it as 2.5 times, which is $2,227 per year. Or no, I'm sorry.
it's $275.
Yeah, 200. Sorry, my number's going to be out. $275 per year. Sorry. Got a little
Numbers person.
numbers person. $275 per year. Okay. And then there's this next category. It's kind of whatever. Is car washes. I just Googled it and said, how often do people wash their cars? And lo and behold, there was some manufacturer of vehicles said you should wash your car every 2 weeks, and you get all these numbers.
Yeah, no.
But I don't know if anybody. I take that back. I do have a neighbor that washes his car pretty much every weekend, and it's spotless. I'm sure if that dude gets a bug on his windshield, he's washing the whole thing. It's like I would never do that. I've got bugs on there from last year, but they'll eventually get washed off by the rain, I guess. But that's how I see it anyway. But anyway, and there's also cleaning supplies, tire cleaner, interior cleaner, all that stuff. But basically you're spending, I'm saying $100 a year to basically maintain your car, make it decent looking.
Give or take, that's probably fair.
If you're going to buy a nice car, you should probably keep it clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with cinnamon rolls and what have you.
Yeah.
Tumbling around the place.
No, dude, I got that policy in there. I just take it over there and get it clean.
We've already got that expense already calculated.
There you go. Okay. All right. So what I did was, and I transpose a number in there too. So we're going to have to change that. There we go. All right. So what I did was, Oh, one other thing I forgot tires. So this is one where, in this Jeep, I probably won't do too much on the tires because I'm not going to drive it that much. But what I did before I bought it was I actually called a tire dealer and said, what's it going to cost me now this thing has pretty much brand new tires on there. The person that traded in put brand new tires on it right before they traded it in. And so, because they did a lot of off-roading with it or did some trail riding, so they put new tires on it. Now, what I did find out was that it's $480 per tire for a new tire, balance, everything, all out the door. But when you do that, you got to get 5 tires. I can't just get 4. I got to get 5. Now, I could get 4, but depending on the height and the size and everything, the one thing you can't do is have an irregular size on there. Now, funny story, I had a Ford Edge when it first came out. You remember the Ford Edge Sport? Mm-hmm. Had these big giant 22s on there. But the spare was a small spare. So I was in Cincinnati, got a nail in the side of my tire, and I'm like, well, I don't care. I'll just put the old tire on there. I called around in Cincinnati, and they go, dude, we can't get you in. Nobody could get us in to fix it. Plus, it was sort of in the sidewall, and they're like, yeah, we don't even fix that. You got to get a new tire. I'm like, I'll get it all the way home. So I took that tire off. I put that spare on there, and as you guys know, a Ford Edge Sport is a 4-wheel drive vehicle. I drove it all the way here, and all of a sudden, I got all these lights going off on my car. And the axle, I jacked it all up because it had 3 regular size tires and 1 small, so one was spinning faster or whatever, and so I basically train wrecked the car, and because I didn't know any better. I mean, I didn't think anything about that. I think about that stuff now. But anyway, back to that point. For this particular vehicle, I had to buy 5 tires. I would have to buy 5 tires as opposed to 4. So did the math. It's about $2,400. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now that I know all these different expenses, now we're going to look and see what does it actually cost you per year for your car. So I just listed everything I've got in here. So first year, obviously, I had down payment on the car. I had tax, title, and license. We had the protection plan. I had the loan payment. That's for 12 months, obviously. The insurance, like as I said, $741. About $5,000 in fuel. My oil change is not $2,200. It's only $275.
I mean, I put full synthetic in my car, but not that kind of synthetic.
I know. Then you got car washes. And I put in here tires, 0, because I don't have any tire expense this year.
Yeah.
But this car that I paid $38,000 for is really costing me $22,000 the first year. In all reality, right? So let's look at year 2. Year 2 is not too much different, other than I need to change that number right there again because I took the same number. The only difference here is that now I've got to buy tires, so it's additional $2,400. Yeah. So I don't have the upfront expense of buying the vehicle. I still have my tags and license I've got to do every year, but I don't have the down payment. I don't have some of those costs, but still it's costing me for year 2 and then moving forward is roughly about the same. It's costing me about $20,000 a year for my car. So think about this. I buy a car. I bought this Jeep, $38,000. And over the course of 4 years, and let's just say 4 years because that's when I have the loan paid off. So let's pretend that I own it for 4 years. I shut it off. At the end of that 4 years, I've essentially paid what?
I mean, a little less than $90,000.
There you go. $90,000 for a car that you see the sticker and you're like, this thing's only costing me $38,000. No, not really. You got to do the math and understand what things actually cost you.
Yeah.
Right?
It doesn't make buying a car very exciting.
No, but
you still bought it. So you did the analysis but you appropriately weighed what the actual expense was for something that in your situation wasn't extremely necessary. Right, you didn't have to do it. So it is an important exercise, I think, to break it down. It also does kind of put into a light all the different levers that you need to factor in. Like purchase price is actually not the most significant piece of this puzzle, right?
That's right.
It's the ability to budget, which Eric really likes to drive home, what all these things entail. fuel efficiency. You could buy a more expensive vehicle if you had something more fuel efficient, right? So there's all this kind of trade-offs there and a bunch of different levers if you itemize them like this on how you can make a good educated decision when buying a car.
Well, that's what you were just referring to, going from the sports car to the Prius. Cost of ownership is actually a whole lot less.
Yeah, I mean, I owned the Mustang outright. Now, I was at about 120,000 miles, and that car was amazing. I mean, I drove it on golf trips. I mean, I took it on road trips. A lot of people just kind of tour around town. That thing was like a good road warrior, did a lot of stuff and did well around town. It was well maintained. But I actually saved money when I ran that analysis over 5 years by buying a different vehicle. Like that was an actual savings on my budget when you factor in total cost of ownership. Never mind the insurance savings. I guess they assumed, that I would maybe be it's a more prudent driver behind the wheel. I don't know. So
seems like a stereotype a little bit, but
yeah, very judgmental, very judgmental.
I think and the point I really want to drive home with this, by doing a podcast like this is, number one, these are real questions that people walk in our door and ask us questions about, right? Mm-hmm. They don't always walk in and go, tell me about the market or tell me why you invest in one widget over another. They do, but we get a lot of calls on, and I know we all do because we all talk about it, but we get questions about everyday living, right? And the question I get when it comes to cars, which is why I wanted to do this, was, and sometimes they almost cringe after they ask me the question. I start walking them through this. They probably hang up and go, why did I just make that phone call? But they ask, should I lease or should I buy, number one? I mean, that can sometimes be a question, and that's for another show. But what they say is, does this make sense? Should I got the opportunity to buy this car and I'm going to get a 3% interest rate, should I do it? Yeah, but you got to make sure you understand how this really affects you. And so that really think that's what our job is as advisors, is to make sure that you're understanding what something actually costs you, right? That's why I did this exercise. It wasn't just for me. I mean, it was for me, but I've been thinking about this and had this conversation with clients over the years when they go, hey, I'm buying a new car. Okay, well, have you considered this? Do you consider that? It's no different than you're buying a piece of real estate or you're investing in anything. You got to know what it actually really costs you. And so this exercise is pretty interesting just to walk through to say, if you buy a car that's around $40,000, you're going to pay, let's call it about 20 grand, between 15 and 20 grand a year to maintain that car. But that's the case with any car, right? Yeah. Even if you have a car that's paid off, it's still costing you something, right? So if we just took off the loan payments of $7,800, we're still $13,000-$14,000 a year to drive a vehicle.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If I paid cash for it. But then if you pay cash for it, you have to look at the opportunity cost. What we were talking about earlier is, what could I have been doing with that money other than buying a depreciating asset? Yeah.
If you're the type of person that keeps 15 months of expenses sitting in a savings account all the time, right? Plus then you leave this kind of cash around, you should pay cash for it if you're genuinely not going to do anything else with it.
That's right.
Right.
Well, that's why you have an emergency fund, right? For emergencies or for situations like this.
What's the appropriate amount? Deploying other things, I think the other thing to think about this, and I'm sure, Brian, you're starting to get there on these things, is the children, when they're going to hit driving age. You probably have started, when you go to look at buying a car for yourself, you're probably already starting to think about when it might be their car, right? And what would that situation and what would that cost look like for them? So this kind of stuff plays out much longer than even for yourself. As kids, I know I'm already like spooked. This whole exercise right here is spooking me with like 3 kids in such close proximity to each other. Never mind like smartphone purchases every 2 years.
Right.
If they can not break them in that time frame.
Well, it could be worse. You could have twins like I do that are going to turn 16 on the exact same day, and they're probably both going to want a car. And imagine trying to split a car when you're a teenager and probably going to different schools at that time. So, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're not going to make the decision for you. Maybe you still want to buy the car, even in light of, you obviously did. You knew the costs involved, and you still went ahead with the purchase. Our job as advisors is to help you make a better educated, more informed decision, whatever that decision may be. We're not going to tell you whether you're right or wrong. If you want to buy the car, buy the car. If you can afford it, if it makes sense, you know all of the options and you know the ramifications up front, then do it. Absolutely. We just want to make sure you're better educated about your decision.
So that was going to be my kind of final points. You kind of alluded to it, but here's the reason why I look at all these numbers and go, okay, yeah, I see that it's costing me $20,000 a year. Somebody may look at that and say, that's crazy. But I do have 2 vehicles, so part of this it's not all this, because I do drive another vehicle that gets a little bit better gas mileage, and I do change oil in there. So it's a little bit different, but I did this exercise though that was my only car. But the point being with all this is I know what it's actually costing me. However, I have done it, believe it or not, I've done a financial plan on myself, right? I mean, we've all done that. But I know that every month I'm putting money away in different accounts, right? So 401k, the Roth IRA, you name it. I'm putting in my kids' college savings account. I'm putting enough money away that I know at the end of the day, when I want to leave this business and I don't want to do this any longer, I should have, the probability is good that I have accumulated enough assets over the course of my working career that I'm going to have enough assets that will provide me the lifestyle that I want to live from now until the day I die, right? So I know that's the case. I know how much I have to put away every month, and I do. I also know that there's a difference between what I make, what I normally spend, and how much I have to put away. And in my case, there's a little bit left over every month. Mm-hmm. So I can choose to do whatever I want to with it. I don't have to save it. If I did, it just makes me say, okay, maybe I can retire a year earlier or whatever. But that's really not my main objective. My main objective is just to continue to save enough and live the life I want to. And then whatever's left over, if I want to go to a concert or I want to, take my Jeep and go down to Red River Gorge and go playing for the weekend, I can do that. And so I know that I've saved enough I've paid myself first every month. Mm-hmm. And then excess, I can do whatever. I just chose to buy another vehicle. That's just what I chose to do.
Yeah. I think statistically, everybody's after financial freedom. And I think what this does is if you've got somebody that crunches the numbers or you do it yourself, most people would not run this.
I get it.
Yeah. Once they know that we do it for them, they're happy to let us do it. But the point is, that you can make this decision and it won't infringe on your financial freedom. Like, that's the worst thing, is to put yourself in handcuffs financially.
Yep.
So you can't do those things. Like the idea that if you were doing this, that this would make you feel like give some higher status. Eventually, it's another vehicle. You get used to sitting in it. So it's not worth doing if it infringes on your flexibility with your life, your ability to travel, do the hobbies you like to do, hang out with your friends, right? That's just not something the road you want to go down.
Well, it's funny because we're not fun police, right? We want you to be able to have that financial freedom. And one of the most rewarding aspects of our job is to sit in a room with somebody and say, retire. You don't need to work another 3 years if you don't want to. We have your plan in place. You have the money. We know what your future looks like. You can pull the trigger now and retire. You want to go on that vacation? You have the money to go on vacation. Go enjoy life. Go do the things. You need to retire with a purpose. Or else it's just not fun, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to, retire and watch Price is Right all day. Well, some might, but ultimately you want to go ahead and reach the goals and dreams that you spend a lifetime saving for, and that's where financial freedom comes into play, to do these sorts of things.
Yeah. And I've had this opposite conversation with client. We all have those clients that are like way too cheap for their own good, right? Like they've spent their whole life and they built a very good nest egg, and maybe sometimes part of the reason wasn't because they made $300,000 a year, but because they didn't spend all of the $150,000 they did make, right?
Yep.
But they get to the end and they have a very comfortable retirement. There is no chance they're going to run out based on what kind of lifestyle they want to have and that kind of stuff. But they still want to keep buying the 10-year-old Honda Accord for $3,000 on Craigslist because they think they're saving some immense amount of money. And then you have this conversation with them. It's like, well, actually, that you're not really doing the amount of good you think you're doing. So now it may be that in some situations they've gotten to a point over 30 years that it just flat doesn't matter. But I will say when someone retires, they do start traveling. They're going to respect, to your point at the very beginning, reliability becomes really key, safety for kids, grandkids, like that kind of stuff. And, it's not always the numbers, but it is important that you know the numbers so you don't end up in a bind 2 years later where you're like, wow, this thing has become a burden, and you feel like you're toting around that payment. Or worst case, you sell it because you have to.
Yep.
Then it was like a catastrophic decision because of the depreciation.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at that point, you're having to be in a position where you're looking at your car as an investment, and cars are not investments.
This is, as you can see, about the single worst
Yes.
Yeah.
investment you can do.
Yeah, but the point being behind all this, and I appreciate you guys jumping in here and doing this podcast. I think it's a pretty cool one. I've wanted to do this one for a while. We've done some very similar. We'll do some of these in the future where we just take a topic that a client comes in and says, "Hey, I got a question for you," and they're pretty cool just to take whatever question it is and turn it into a podcast, because I guarantee there's going to be somebody that listens to this and goes, "You know what? I've had that question for my advisor," or "I wish I knew somebody I could reach out to ask that question." They might tell me how to actually consider buying a car or house or whatever. And I think that's really what we're here for. So anyway, I appreciate you guys jumping in here, and we'll see you guys next week, and we'll have another topic on Peace of Mind, our radio podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Everybody have a good one.
IFP and Family Wealth Planning Partners are not affiliated. The information given herein is taken from sources that IFP Advisors, LLC, doing business as IFP, IFP Securities, LLC, doing business as IFP, and its advisors believe to be reliable, but it is not guaranteed by us as to accuracy or completeness. This is for informational purposes only, and in no event should be construed as an offer to sell or solicitation of an offer to buy any securities or products. Please consult your tax and/or legal advisor before implementing any tax and/or legal related strategies mentioned in this publication, as IFP does not provide tax and/or legal advice. Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not take into account the particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs of individual investors.